Okay. So we've got several people here, and we could probably go ahead and start if you want to introduce yourself. And
Sure, I'd be happy to.
let's see.
Hi, my name is Duane Abel, and I'm skipping. Can everyone hear me okay right now?
I can hear you.
Can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay, okay, okay. My name is Duane, and I am a cartoonist. I am the author and illustrator of the forthcoming Bowlers. There is my advanced reader copy, which I received yesterday. And I'm from a small town in Ohio. I've never wanted to be anything other than a cartoonist because whenever I first discovered that you could earn a living writing and drawing cartoons, when I first drew Superman many, many years ago, my course was set. I never wanted to be anything else in the world. And I was starting selling cartoons when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, sold my comic strip Zed when I was 15 years old, became the world's youngest syndicated cartoonist in the world when I was 15 years old, and that did not impress anyone. Not a teacher, not my parents. They did not care at all. A few months later, the owner of the company passed away, and I was right back to where I started. So I kept drawing the comic strip, and during that time, I also discovered that I was a ham, which means I'm very good on stage if it means I can steal the spotlight away from you. And I was always singing, acting, and dancing in different kinds of musicals. And as luck would have it, there was someone in the audience of the last show I did in high school, and they saw me on stage and they said, you know what? I'll bet we get him to come to our college on a full theater scholarship. And my parents said, of course you can. So I was off to college as a theater major, knowing I was never going to be an actor. I just wanted to be a cartoonist. I had my first book published when I was in college. And then a couple years later, formed my own publishing company, Corky Comics Publishing, that just handles all of my comic strip collections. By the way, the name of my comic strip is entitled Zed. And if you're thinking right now, well, I've never heard of that, that's okay. I've never heard of you either. So we're in good company right now. But it is a very small comic strip. It runs in about 30 or 40 weekly newspapers all throughout the country. Several book collections have been published. So that's what has been taking up all of my time. And just this past year, I've spent a lot more time in my studio than I ever have before because I have been traveling the country for the past 12 years presenting assemblies to elementary school students about goal setting, literacy, the importance of education, and I do that with a full easel and marker right behind me. No technology at all. I want to make sure they can see cartoons being created right in front of their eyes without an iPad or a phone, just me, a marker, and 4 great words. Those words are work, study, learn, try. Because the great thing is, in every single book I've ever read on personal development and how to better yourself, whether it's Tony Robbins, Zig Ziglar, Jack Canfield, it all boils down to 4 words: work, study, learn, try. And those are words that I learned from a cartoonist who I would always write letters when I was younger. I always wanted to learn more about how to write and draw cartoons. Why? Because I'm from a very small town in Ohio. If I wanted to learn how to be a farmer, I had lots of people I could ask. But to be a cartoonist, I had to dig a little bit deeper. So I was always writing letters, and I would get original comic strips in the mail. I would get great letters in the mail. I would get pictures of cartoonists behind their drawing boards, and that looked so cool. But one thing I received was a little Post-it note that had a coffee cup stain in the corner. That's how important this Post-it note was to this one cartoonist. And it just had 4 words on it. He said, Duane, work, study, learn, try. And that was a cartoonist named Bud Blake. He wrote and drew a comic strip called Tiger. It appeared in newspapers for about 39 years. He just passed away a couple of years ago. It's a beautiful comic strip and definitely worth you Googling right now. Bud Blake, Tiger. And that's a little bit about myself. What else can I tell you? I am coming to you live right now from my basement studio. I live in a very small town in Ohio. Coincidentally, my next door neighbor, the house was once owned by President William McKinley. In fact, all of the land around my house was once owned by President William McKinley. Now, I have two things that put me in common with a gentleman named Mort Walker. Mort Walker is the creator of Beetle Bailey. And we have two things in common. Number one, we are the only two cartoonists in the world that have antique roll-top desks. Mine is right behind me. And both of these antique roll-top desks have something very special. They both have bullet holes in them. Mort Walker's has one. I have one as well. His came from a newspaper reporter who had an angry and very jealous wife that took a shot at him one day, and he inherited that drawing board. Mine came from my in-laws, and it is proof that alcohol and firearms do not mix on Christmas Eve. That's my in-laws, folks. And the other thing that puts me in common with Mort Walker is we both have presidential connections. He bought the house that was owned by the same gentleman that designed and built Mount Rushmore. So the same studio where Beetle Bailey was drawn every single day is the same studio where Mount Rushmore was first conceived. That's pretty neat. And I can do better. I live right next door to the home that was once owned by President William McKinley, and the land that my house is built on was once owned and occupied by President William McKinley's chicken coop. That's my presidential connection. So I live in a house with my wife, who is actually not here right now. She is teaching classes at her ballroom dance studio, because a big secret is I am a trained theatrical dancer who hates to dance. I did not want to be around any dancers at all. So when I was getting ready to graduate college, I said, you know what? I don't want to be near any dancers at all. I don't want to be inside of a dance studio. I'm done. So of course I married a ballroom dance instructor, and that's the way that wind blew. I have two sons. My one son is at work right now, 19 years old, in college, wants to open up a auto body garage upon graduation. And my younger son Clayton is upstairs playing video games right now. You might hear him jumping back and forth. He's 12 years old, and he wants to be a football player. And for someone like me that has no interest in football whatsoever, I just want to know what time to drop him off and what time to pick him up. Everything else, I have no idea what's going on, and I am fine in my ignorance when it comes to what goes on the football field.
So does anyone here have any questions for Duane?
I have a comment, or I have a question. So what is your book, fiction, nonfiction? I guess I missed that part.
My book is entitled Bowlers, and
Right.
it is about a fictional cereal mascot that retires from the world of selling sugary cereal, the best kind. I love that kind of cereal more than anything else in the world. And at my age, it's probably the worst thing in the world for me to have, but it's from my childhood. So anyway, Bowlers, he leaves selling cereal to over the commercials, and he wants to have a simpler life on the farm, teaching children about a healthier breakfast. And all of that is all well and good until two really mean cereal mascots are sent to the farm and try to bring Bowlers back. So it is an early reader. I call it an early reader graphic novel because the words and the pictures marry together perfectly. It should be a lot of fun for kids. I hope they have fun reading it because I had a lot of fun drawing it.
Well, I just attended a workshop with the Smithsonian, and it was a nonfiction workshop, and they said that graphic novels are the thing that is the top selling children's book right now, graphic novels. So there you go.
And you know what? Why couldn't that have been the case when I was growing up? Because when I was growing up, it was just called Duane's reading a comic book again, so we got to put something else in his hands. Because I was always a very reluctant reader. If I was ever assigned something to read, I didn't want to read it. I still feel that way. I do not want to read it. I want to read what I want to read. And most of the time that is not as much graphic novels, because I don't even enjoy it. As a cartoonist, I do not like the term graphic novel. It's a marketing ploy. It's a comic book.
So here's the advanced copy.
Okay.
And that's Bowlers. So it's a really cute little story.
It's cute, yeah. So is it like, it's not panels, not like cartoon like then? I mean, it's a cartoon, but you're not doing a bunch of panels on a page?
No,
Or
it's just
not
one
looking
panel
at-
per page.
One panel per page, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't mean to be snooty when it comes to that, but the phrase graphic novel, it's a great phrase. It's just not what I do. I draw cartoons. And I'm no different than
Oh,
Charles
okay.
Schultz. Charles Schultz was the exact same way. Charles Schultz was one of the world's best businessmen. In fact, his income, at the height of Peanuts, he was earning $10 million every single month.
That's nice.
90% of that was
Okay.
I'm sorry, 10% of that was newspapers. 90% was from merchandising and other kinds of deals. He was
Right.
a very smart man. And even though he was the most widely read author of the 20th century, he kept it very simple. He said, I'm just a cartoonist. My job is to fill 4 little boxes every single day. And that's how he described his entire job. Now, once you start me talking about Peanuts, it's very hard to get me to stop because I love Snoopy and Charlie Brown, and I have a story. I have to share it with all of you right now. If you're ever in California and you're near Santa Rosa, which is, I believe it is near about 90 minutes from San Francisco, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, it's the home to the Charles Schultz Museum. And I was invited there to speak a couple of years ago, and when I walked into the Schultz Museum, it was the most religious experience I'd ever had in my entire life. I knew I was home. I knew I never wanted to leave because there was Snoopy and Charlie Brown everywhere. And there were original Snoopy and Charlie Brown comic strips that were lining the walls because Charles Schultz, heaven help him, drew everything the old-fashioned way. No computers. It was all done with paper and ink. And these original comic strips, they're very large and they're very gorgeous. And as luck would have it, I stopped in front of a comic strip, and of course I was admiring it. My face was just a few inches away from this comic strip, and then I noticed the date. The date that this comic strip ran in newspapers all over the world was the exact date that I was born. I was looking at the comic strip that ran in newspapers the Sunday I was being brought into the world. And I'm so naive and so egotistical at the exact same time that I thought, what a nice thing for the museum to do for someone like me. And then I learned the meaning of the word coincidence. And right then and there was a tap on my shoulder. I turned around and it was a little woman, 70 some years old, 5 feet tall, 100 pounds. And my eyes got real big. I knew exactly who this was. This was Jeannie Schultz. This was the widow of Charles Schultz. And she said, I heard you wanted to meet me. And I said, well, yes, I do. She said, well, I heard you're a big fan of my husband. I said, oh boy, you got that right. And she said, well, could we sit down? I want you to tell me about how much my husband's work has meant to you. And this was the conversation I've been preparing for my entire life. And I poured my heart and soul out to her. And after we got done, she jumped up and said she was late for exercise class. She was going to have to miss my presentation, but she gave me a great big hug before she left. And all I was thinking was, these are the same arms hugging me right now that hugged my hero the entire time they were married. So if you ever find video on YouTube of me speaking at the Schultz Museum, you will see I'm doing a very conscious job of hiding my drawing hand behind my back because my hand is shaking so bad. It takes a lot to rattle me when I get ready to go on stage. I am a trained thespian, but oh boy, did that rattle me. And if you want to, I can tell you a story about what rattled me more, because there was another cartoonist that you know his cartoons. If anyone's familiar with the comic strip Ziggy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, everyone knows Ziggy. Well, Ziggy was drawn by a man named Tom Wilson. Tom Wilson, in his final years of life, he was a resident in a upscale retirement community that was located in southern Ohio. I live in northeast Ohio, and I got a telephone call from this retirement community, and they said, hey, would you want to come and entertain our residents? Because I do a program about the old-fashioned Sunday funnies, because I have a lot of stories to tell, and I do drawings the entire time. I really take them away on a journey through the Sunday funnies. and they said, you'll want to come because one of our residents is a former cartoonist. And I knew exactly who they were talking about because I had read that he was now in a retirement community. So the day comes and I'm escorted into the room of my hero, Tom Wilson, creator of Ziggy, the first fan letter I ever wrote. And he replied back when I was 10 years old. I brought the letter with me and I went in and I met him, and he had lost the power of speech at that point, but he was able to still communicate and still nod his head. And I was talking to my hero and my attention was diverted over into the corner because in this very small room was his Emmy Award. His Emmy Award was large, it was big, and it caught the light. And he saw that I was noticing this Emmy Award. And I was trying to talk to him, but my attention was going over to the Emmy Award. So when I was finally on stage and they were bringing in everyone for my presentation, I'm checking my microphone, I'm getting my easel all ready, I'm talking to people in the front row, getting them excited. They wheel him to the front, my hero, and he has a blanket over his lap, and he's smiling, he's excited. And as I get ready to talk, and I'm really getting into it, right before every punchline I had, he would reach under that blanket, pull out his Emmy Award, and shake it at me, just so he knew that I knew that that was going to rattle me. And then whenever I was flustered enough, he would hide it back under his blanket, sit back, and smile. And I would go on, catch myself, and 10 minutes later, ramp up for another joke. He would shake it at me. So they say that you should never meet your heroes. I say you should always meet your heroes. Just make sure they aren't allowed to bring their Emmy Award into the room when you're getting ready to speak. So that was my stories of my 2 times on stage where I was flustered by my heroes.
That's what heroes can do to you, though.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if anybody has any other questions or want to talk about anything else or ask specific questions for Duane about cartooning or drawing or storytelling or anything.
Is your character in the book the same as in, like, are you doing like a Peanuts thing? Do you have the same characters you use, or do you use different characters?
That's a good question. I've been writing and drawing my comic strip Zed for about 25 years now, started when I was 15 years old. And he is a character that I've known longer than my wife, longer than my sons, longer than my dog. But the character in this book named Bowlers is brand spanking new. We're just starting to figure each other out a little bit. We've had our formal introductions. This is, however, our first book, so hopefully we have many more books to come where I can tell many more of his adventures, but we're still learning how to get along with each other, and we're doing our best. We both enjoy the same cereal, so that's always good, because in the back of the book, it's very important that I tell children that they should always have a healthy breakfast, unless it's Saturday morning and there's cartoons on. At that point, you should have the most sugary cereal that you can, because my wife knows that my go-to midnight snack is always a bowl of cereal.
And that is one of the facts in the book, too.
Yes, it is.
Do you have facts in the book, or is it just mainly the story that you're telling?
Sorry, would you mind repeating that, please?
Do you have facts in the book, or is it mainly just the story you're telling?
I have to look myself. There are a few facts, actually. One of them is that is March 7th is National Cereal Day. Another one, astronauts ate cereal during the first moon landing. Never knew that one. And one that I have to take suspect to this just because of me. Americans eat 100 pounds of cereal every year, or individually, that's 160 bowls of cereal every single year. I have that fact knocked out by March of every single year. So
are the facts in the story, or are they
they're in the back of the book.
in the back? Okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
So we can reference. Yeah, that's great. And it's for what age? Yeah. What age?
Let's see. Officially, I would say about first, second, third
Yeah.
third grade.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
That would
definitely
be my
some
guess.
what I call second, third grade humor.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's being nice. What she means, it's a very, very immature, very childish humor. That's exactly what she means by that.
Oh, my favorite one is about Spot, and you can tell that one.
Oh, well, if I have to remember it first.
You wrote it.
When Bowlers, the star of this little book, he wants to go to the farm. He fills out an application. It said he made sure to write very neatly on his job application, and he was hired on the spot. Bowlers was then asked to please get off of Spot. So it's a very immature humor.
Hey, kids love that.
Yes, they do. That's why we get along so well. But I will say, just this has nothing to do with anything at all. But since Thanksgiving is coming up in less than a week, one of the things that I have to do every year is I have to watch Planes, Trains, and Automobiles on television. I got to find it. Steve Martin, John Candy, got to find it every single year. Well, interesting fact, if you look right behind me, there are 2 original Sunday comic strips on this wall. They're from a comic strip called The Berries. The Berries was drawn by a Chicago cartoonist named Carl Gertberg from the 1940s all the way through the 1970s. Well, the reason I pointed that out is because the first job where John Hughes was paid to be a writer he was a ghostwriter for that comic strip right there. And that was back when he was in his early 20s is when he started earning money as a ghostwriter. And his first published work was in the comic strip, which his sample is right behind me. So John Hughes, writer of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
So do you
Great.
scour the world for comic panels and stuff like that? Yeah.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I have a rule. One of my rules is that I have never heard of you as a cartoonist, because if it's a cartoonist that even I've never heard of, chances are I have to have that comic strip. In fact, there's most of these comic strips, they're very large, they're very beautiful. There's one from the 1940s that is in my wife's ballroom studio right now. And this cartoonist had a very illustrious career. His name was Bing Fuller. And Bing Fuller, his career came to a crashing end in 1955 when he tried to draw a comic strip that was considered a blatant carbon copy ripoff of Charlie Brown and Snoopy. And that was when Charlie Brown and Snoopy was only 5 years old. And the fact that he created a comic strip that pretty much totally mirrored and was a blatant copy of Snoopy and Charlie Brown, it ruined his entire career. Because if you go to my wife's ballroom studio, you will see on a wall our original comic strips lining the wall from cartoonists all over the Sunday Funnies. Because one of the most dangerous things in the world that ever happened to me was I became a member of the National Cartoonist Society. Every single cartoonist you've ever heard of is a member of this organization. They should not have let me in. Here's why. Many, many years ago, there was a cartoonist. His cartoon had just started appearing in newspapers, and he applied for membership to the National Cartoonist Society. He was flatly rejected. And that was Mr. Charles Schulz. He was rejected on his first application to the National Cartoonist Society. About 45, 50 years later, there was another young cartoonist no one ever heard of, who shall remain me, who was accepted on his first application into the National Cartoonist Society. That's why I have a big problem with the NCS. They rejected my hero, Charles Schulz, and they let me in. So I have a big problem with their judgment on that one.
Oh man.
In fact, right now, I have the
Would
mug
you
that I'm drinking
describe
out of.
your relationship and writing between words?
Would you mind repeating that, please?
I didn't hear it either. Uh-oh. I think she might have froze.
Are you still there, Nancy? Well, if she is, we'll get back to her in one
Yeah.
moment. I will say that the mug I'm drinking out of right now. This was a gift from my wife. This is a play that I wrote many years ago. It's entitled Jelly Jars. It's about an egotistical cartoonist. You can guess who played the lead in that production. And it was the only time my wife and I ever appeared on stage. And the only reason I wrote this play is because I had a dream one night and I told my wife about it the next morning. And I expected her to do what all wives do when their husband tells them their great idea. They're supposed to say that you need to go outside and mow the lawn. Well, my wife said, that's a great idea. You need to write that up as a play. So I did. And I got my friends together. We put it on stage. And lo and behold, I became a playwright. And the most rave review of the evening came when my mother came to a performance. And afterwards, she said, you know, it's like that play was actually written by someone who gets paid to be funny.
Talk about little faith, right?
That's my mom.
Yeah.
That's my mom, folks. But this year, even though it's been a difficult year for everyone, my mother has had a great deal of fun because this is the first year that one of my cartoons, actually many to this point, have been published in her favorite magazine, Woman's World. So if you're ever by the supermarket and grab a copy of Woman's World, chances are you will see my cartoon inside of it. And even though I've sold books for the past 15 years, I've autographed thousands of books because no book leaves my studio unless it's personally autographed by me. My own mother had me sign a copy of Woman's World because she said, this is the first autograph you've ever given. I said, no, it's not. I've given thousands of autographs. She goes, yeah, but this is the first one that counts.
Oh. Let's see. So I did want to say, since we still have a little bit of time, Duane's plans for the release of this book, he wants to sign the most copies of a book that have ever been signed in a 24-hour period.
Yep. I've been in extensive training. Absolutely every chance I get, I'm signing my name over and over again. Currently, the record is just over 4,000 and 4,200 and change, and that's in a 24-hour period. I've done the math with my son, my 19-year-old son, who is much more advanced in math than I ever wished to be. And he is convinced that I can break the record. I can have the world record cinched if I sign 5,000 books, and I can do that in just under 12 hours, according to my son. So we will see if he's right. And now currently the plan is to have this entire spectacle done at Cereal Fest. Cereal Fest takes place in Battle Creek, Michigan, otherwise known as Cereal City, USA. And that is where the Kellogg's factory is. Since my book is all about a former cereal mascot, we are going to invade Cereal City. And we're going to take over. We're going to break the world record and sign 5,000 books in a single day during Cereal Fest, hopefully in or around Kellogg Arena. So that's going to be a fun day.
So when
And
is that?
I'm sure my hand is going to be killing me after that. That's why I'm trying to get Ace Bandages to sponsor the entire event, because that's what my hand's going to be wrapped in whenever the event is all said and done. Which, speaking of being wrapped in things, I will say this because I completely forgot about it, but I was just reminded a little bit ago. I'll tell you why in a moment. In high school, because I told you that I performed a lot in plays and musicals, I was in a musical where I had to play a priest. And the priest was an amateur magician. And one of the tricks he had was to get out of an official police-issued straitjacket. So how do you teach an actor to get out of an official police-issued straitjacket? You have him go to the sheriff's station, get a straitjacket, which they gave me without any trouble at all, small town Ohio. And you spend an entire weekend in your backyard learning how to get out of an official police-issued straitjacket. And then when I was in college, I had a professor tell me to write my official acting resume, and including any skill or talent you have, which could be juggling, standing on your hand, anything you can do that sets you apart. Well, I wrote, I can escape from an official police issued straitjacket. And the next day, my professor said, okay, I just found an example of something you never want to put on a resume. And the payoff of the entire story is in January. I'm not really allowed to say this right now, but I have been cast in a movie. It's going to be filming in Ohio. That's all I can say about it right now. And I was able to get the job partly because they loved it that I put on my official acting resume that I can escape from a police-issued straitjacket. So my acting professor in college might have been wrong. Might have been holding me back all these years. We'll never know.
Perfect.
So that event is in June.
Yeah.
Right now I'm showing it starts, I think it's June 12th is what I have written down.
Mhm.
If it holds.
So plenty of time to get vaccinated and be there.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, my grandmother is very happy. The release date for the book coincides with her 85th birthday. And
Aw.
that was done on purpose, just so that we're clear, Dawn. that there's no way that was an accident on either of our parts.
Yeah. I didn't know her birthday. Nope.
My grandma is so well connected, she would have called you. Everyone knows my grandmother. Everyone in my Tri-County area fears my grandmother, because if you do something wrong, she will call you out on it, whether it's in a grocery store, whether it's in a parking lot. Grandma has no filter at all. And luckily that filter was passed down to her only grandson, because I'm going to tell another story now. What can I say?
Go for it.
My grandfather passed away about 11 years ago. And I was talking to my grandmother. I was a little worried, getting older, as we all are. And I was worried about one very special thing when it came to my grandfather. My grandfather had no hair. I was worried about losing my hair. I was also worried about losing my hearing, but my hair a little bit more than my hearing. Grandpa could not hear, and he had no hair at all. So she said, well, you don't know the story, do you? I didn't know there was a story. So I sat down, like, what's the story, Grandma? And she said, your grandfather was in a tank during the Korean War. Actually, he was on maneuvers in Kentucky. He never made it over to Korea. And apparently it is stuffy inside of a tank. So your grandpa, not being the smartest knife in the drawer, he thought, well, I'm going to get some air. And he popped the hatch right when they fired that tank. And it scared my grandpa so bad, it just blew the hair right off of his head. And it's definitely what took his hearing away from him. So she said, Duane, you don't ever have to worry about hair loss or your hearing loss being hereditary. But stupidity runs deep inside the family tree. That's what you need to worry about. So, and I've been keeping my grandmother pleased ever since, because I'm always able to do something stupid. That's how I'm able to write my comic strip. Every single week when I sit down to write my comic strip, I say, okay, what stupid thing have I done this week that'll be good for the comic strip? A couple years ago, because I'm not handy around the house. I will admit that. I'm a man. I'm not handy. I do not watch football, and I'm not handy around the house. But there was ice on building up on my son's gutter. And I thought, well, I can take care of ice. I can crawl out on the roof with a hammer, and I can break apart ice. That's no trouble at all. So that's what I did. And I'm holding on to the gutter, and it's winter, and I'm pounding on that gutter, and my wife is getting a good view from downstairs in the kitchen. She sees the hammer fall. She sees the gutter fall. And you know what comes next? She saw me fall into the snow. And then she came out to make sure I was okay. After she was done laughing for a few moments, then she came out and checked on me. And she saw that I was not moving. And she said, Duane, are you okay? I said, I'm fine. She said, then why are you not moving? I said, I'm not getting up from this snowbank until I can think of a good idea for my comic strip. That way, all of this stupidity would at least have been worth something. Luckily, it just took 5 more minutes. I got an idea, and I went inside the house, and I got warmed up. So,
Oh.
Did
So
we
where
get
do
Nancy
cartoonists
back?
get their ideas? Stupidity, for lack of a better word. Stupidity and fear. That's all we need.
Did we ever get Nancy back? No, I don't. Oh, there she is.
Yeah.
Looks like
You-
her microphone is off right now.
Yeah. You had a question you started to ask and then it cut out and we didn't know if maybe it got answered in there.
Yeah. But she's muted, so I don't know.
Yeah. I didn't mute her. So
Yeah.
I muted myself at one point because my dog was over.
Well, Nancy, you started to have a question. I wasn't able to answer it. Would you mind repeating your question so I can finally answer that for you?
Sure. The question I had was if you could talk to us about your relationship uh, between your words that you write and the pictures that you draw. Which one comes to you first, and do you make one fit the other, or do they just come simultaneously, or how does that work?
That's a good question. For me, the words always have to come first, because if the words aren't good, it doesn't matter how good the drawing is. There's an old adage when it comes to cartoonists. Good words will always, a good gag, otherwise a good joke, will always elevate a bad drawing. A bad joke can never be saved by a really good drawing, which means you can be the best artist in the world, and there have been many of them, and they try to draw a comic strip, they fall flat 9 times out of 10 because the writing always comes first. So what happens is I'll talk a little bit about both processes. First, my comic strip, then the book. Whenever I do my comic strip, I sit down someplace very quiet. I write down as many ideas as I can. I'm not drawing anything. I'm just writing. I'm trying to get all the ideas from my head onto the page. And the problem with writer's block is it's a problem for amateurs because professionals don't have the time to have writer's block. But writer's block is not that you don't know what to write. It's the fact that everything you write stinks in your mind. It may or may not be the case, but everything you write, you're just not pleased with. That's the worst writer's block there is. So when you are in that process and you're writing down all your ideas, I write down about 10, 15, 20, if I'm lucky, just ideas. Of those, I will sketch out just a few that I have hope for. And then I take them to the most hard-nosed editor I've ever met in my entire life. She's mean, she's cruel, she has no time to save any of your feelings, otherwise known as my wife. Now, Stephen King, he said he always writes for his ideal reader. His ideal reader is his wife. So if it doesn't pass muster with her, he doesn't go any further. A lot of cartoonists are the exact same way. They show their wives everything. If a wife will not go yay or nay, it doesn't get published. So my wife will tell me, this one's good, this one, I don't know about that one. And then she goes on and does whatever she has to do because she's busy. She runs a couple of businesses. She doesn't have time for me some of the time. So after that's done, then I'm able to worry about the drawing. After everything's all written down nice and neat in my comic strip, I'm able to worry about the picture. Now, when I'm doing a book like this right here, again, the words always come first, and I will fuss with them over and over again. And even though this is the advanced reader copy, I'm still fussing with the words going, is that right? Could I make that sound a little bit better? But I'm also the kind of guy that if I had work hanging in a museum, I'd be erasing it when it's on the wall going, no, I can do a little bit better. So the words always come first. And when it comes to that, I'm very peculiar. There's other cartoonists the exact same way that I am. If you open my work and you start to read it and I'm in the room, you will look up and quickly see that I have left the room because I do not enjoy hearing my work read out loud. If you take away one element, the element being looking at the illustration at the exact same time that you're reading it. That's why I feel that cartoons are the perfect marriage of words and pictures. They all must work together. Otherwise, it's like a table with not enough legs. It just falls apart. So for me, cartoons especially are the perfect marriage of words and pictures. And this book right here, Bowlers, is just an extension of words and pictures. Both of them work together to do the exact same thing. So that was a very long-winded question to a very short and astute question. So I apologize if I tend to ramble and talk and carry on a conversation. I do apologize about that. I am a raconteur, and there's a lot of cartoonists that they're all very shy. They do not want to be the center of attention. I, however, do not have that problem one bit. In fact, I was giving an assembly many, many years ago, and my hero came to watch my assembly at an elementary school in Nevada. And this was the gentleman named Brian Crane. Brian is the cartoonist of the comic strip Pickles. So if you read the Sunday paper and you read Pickles about Earl and Opal, you've met the work of Brian Crane. And he came in to watch my presentation. And afterwards, we went out to dinner, my hero and me going out to eat. And he said, I could never do what you do. And I'm thinking, you know what? I could do exactly what you do. Anytime you want to try and switch, I'll take the 2,000 papers. You can go speak to elementary school students, and we'll see how that trade goes. He didn't think that was a good idea at the time, so. But Brian's a great guy. Pickles is an amazing comic strip. I love him to pieces. Again, another hero I've had the fortune to meet. Every hero I've ever met has turned out to be a better guy than I could have ever imagined. Even Mort Walker, who I never got to meet, he found out that my wife was going to open a ballroom dance studio, and right before he died, he was in his mid-90s, he took out a Sharpie and he drew Beetle Bailey dancing, and he sent it to my wife. It's now hanging in her ballroom dance studio. The best part of that story is a few months later, being up there in years, he forgot that he did this drawing, and he did the same drawing again, and he sent it to me. And I am too proud to tell him that he did that twice, because I am selfish and I wanted a Beetle Bailey too. So I'm just very happy that he did that. So I have one hanging in my studio. My wife has one hanging in hers as well. We're both happy campers.
That's a
works.
nice story.
Okay, well, I think, oh, yeah, our time is about up. I'm surprised that Zoom didn't yell at me, but.
Well, thank you very much, and hope you enjoyed yourselves this evening. And Dawn, I will probably see you again 2 more times. So
Yep,
if
2
you
more
hear the
times.
same story over and over again, you and my wife have plenty to talk about then, because she's been
Okay.
hearing the same stories for about 20 years now. So,
I'm used to that. I hear all the same stories from my husband too. So,
well, it drives my wife crazy, because whenever we go someplace in a big city and we get an Uber, first question I ask the Uber driver is, hey, what's your best story? Because I'm always looking for ideas for my comic strip. And she'll poke me in the rib and say, maybe they don't want to talk to you. And I say, why? I've been around this planet for 40 years. They've never met me. They're missing out on something. I need to know what their best story is. Drives her nuts. She cannot stand it one bit. So,
okay.
so ladies, thank you very much.
Thank you
Dawn, I
so
will see
much.
you
So,
Thank
tomorrow.
you. Yeah, that
Thank
was
you.
great. Thank you,
yeah, it
Duane.
was good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Enjoyed it. So,
Bye-bye.
Yeah,
ladies.
we
Bye-bye.
did. Thank you.